Sinen, what was the most encouraging thing personally as you prepared and preached the message?
Is this a preparation question or just in terms of the truth?
Sorry?
So encouraging my prep.
No, just like for you personally.
Oh, okay.
What did you take away during the whole
warning.
process?
The warning. The warning was great to hear and try to apply to my own soul and heed it for maturation. That was the main thing for me.
Jeremy White.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think for me that was kind of it, but not only the warning, but I think the interesting balance you brought to it as well, with the difference of backsliding and or falling away, or i.e. never having had it. I think it was sort of a comfort because there are days I wake up and I'm like, I believe in God, does he believe in me? But kind of making that distinction, I felt like was like still terrifying, but also a good bolster as well to be like, I'm fighting for this, so yeah. He's fighting for me, so yeah, I like that a lot.
I thought that the most encouraging thing was that even in the hardest work, the most underappreciated work of ministry, God is just to reward those who do ministry.
I was encouraged in your first point with the warning not to fall away, that you said it's a good day to repent. Like even in that dire wording, there's still hope and you can still repent. And if you do and you don't cease, then you're not included with the people of that warning.
Yeah, brother, thank you for the word. Similar to Jeremy, your line, the justice of God reflects a ray of hope. The fact that he will not overlook your works there in verse 10 was personally encouraging for me.
Yeah, I also appreciated what you did with God's justice, and even just rooting some of what you said in your first point in God's justice as an encouragement, and then as what was already said, God's justice for the person who might be sinned against, particularly the minister. Thank you for that.
I appreciated the warning, but also even more perhaps the exhortation to keep moving forward.
Yeah, for me, similarly, the exhortation, but it was especially persuasive because even in a warning passage, your tone was so inviting and gentle and welcoming. It wasn't, you didn't bring a rod, so yeah, it personally ministered to me in that way. So something you want to improve on?
Lot. So leveraging, so the stuff we've been learning this week about leveraging the text to kind of try and land the application a little bit more. So I tried it a little bit. The few things I learned this week I try to use, but yeah, I still want to get sharp on that.
Yeah, I think for me, I want to preface this remark too. I represent your slower church member. I'm the least trained, and also I have the hardest time with biblical language sometimes. So I say that because I think you do a really good job at like repetition and stuff like that, but I got lost at the beginning because you were repeating a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, this is the first point. Oh, no. Oh, this is, and so, which then led me to, I think, get the wrong first point, which I thought you said at first, no way back to restoration.
Right.
But then your entire first point was these people don't even have a way to restoration because they aren't Christians. But then I got it at the end when you came back to it, which was good. You said no restoration is possible if we cease to continue. So then I got the no restoration is possible. But so just being
clear.
careful, yeah, more clear. Because again, you've got the skill down really well. Obviously you're gifted, but sometimes it was a little
No, that's
confusing
good,
at points.
helpful.
So when you got right into your first point, very shortly after kind of setting the stage for what you were going to talk about, you immediately jumped to the elephant in the room.
Yeah, it was
Oh.
abrupt.
Oh yeah, that's putting it mildly. So you would not even explain what was the content
Yeah.
of the
That's a-
point before you got to the elephant. So regardless of how good the elephant in the room stuff was, that should
No,
have
that-
most definitely come at
That's right.
the end, not, now before I even, we're all even on the same page about what's going on here, let me bring this thing up.
Yeah.
Cause that just totally took us out of
Yeah,
the
it
text,
was
and you had to kind of
jarring.
wrangle us all back in.
Oh, man.
I thought that you sounded like you were repeating your intro after you started your first point. When you said, what's at stake if we cease to continue in our maturity? It's like you had that intro, you started your first point, you gave the literary context that came before, and then it kind of felt like you just repeated your intro again,
Yeah,
so I was
I think
wondering if you got lost
that's
or in
probably
your
right.
notes.
Clarity there, yeah.
Yeah.
I just got lost a little bit with your roadmap, the structure. It seemed like 4 to 6 was really clear with the question, the answer, and then we somehow got to 7 and 8, and then we went back to 6.
Right.
And then we were in, I thought maybe 9 through 12, but it was just 9 and 10, and then it was 10 and 12. So I think while it all pulled together thematically, structurally
clear.
between the sections, where we were supposed to be with you sometimes was confusing for me.
Definitely.
Yeah, you had a really great line in your second point, but I can't quite remember exactly what you said, and I think something like that, like a haymaker like that, it would have been nice if you would have repeated it, or paused after, or something, like,
So
you had like.
too quickly.
Yeah, I could, when I heard it, I was like, oh man, that's really good, and I tried to write it down, but then you were just gone, and I was like, oh shoot, I can't remember exactly what you said.
I enjoyed it, but I would say a preview of where you was gonna take us. That would have helped me to.
That would have helped correct it,
Yeah.
a lot of, yeah. Thank you, yeah, that's it.
I thought, I didn't notice that you actually spoke about what this restoration was in your first point, and so, yeah, I just didn't have clarity as to like, okay, it's your point, but what is it doing?
Right.
Goes back, oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't have much else, not to hammer onto this again, but I completely missed your gospel connection. And that might just be me, but I've got like 3 places where I've got it like, is that it, or is this it? Which again, that could 100% just be me, other people could have gotten that, but, again, that just goes in with the clarity of the skeleton and kind of that, I think.
I would say that, and this goes for everybody, but don't use illustrations about places you've never been and don't know much about.
I said, I don't know, actually.
Yeah, but you were totally wrong about the place that you were talking about, so.
I was right about my country.
Just use that one.
That was kind of bummer, but that's helpful. That's very helpful. I thought to myself, oh man, they would shoot me down.
I think all mine have been said.
Likewise, I maybe just to reemphasize the gospel connection. I also was, I was almost looking. I thought there was going to be a bigger moment of the gospel connection, and it wasn't there, in the way that I was hoping, I guess.
Kind of re-emphasizing some of what was said in our first pass, but I wonder if just having your point titles being a little bit tighter or more
Mhm.
clear
Yeah.
would have been helpful. Especially at
Really.
your first point, it was like, a
Yep.
warning and an encouragement. now here's a question, what's at stake? Now here's what's at stake,
Yep.
there's no way back. So there was like multiple
Yeah, yeah.
titles for that first point. Yeah.
I felt at the very end of it, you dropped a name on us, and I was like, wait, who? That was Abraham. I was like,
Oh.
Abraham. I said, so, I wasn't
And you
sure.
didn't have a
Yeah,
reference,
the
you're saying,
reference is
like if
already-
he pointed out the
Yeah,
verse.
yeah, I've just said context, but yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh. I liked your intro generally, but your whole point of making progress and moving forward, you went so far that it almost seemed to undo your point,
Yep.
because especially when you drew the connection between old people eating and pooping,
Yeah.
that's actually like regression in one sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So either you need to, just
I had-
stop like when you get to adulthood,
Yeah.
or,
I had more to say there, but I cut out not enough.
More
So I was gonna actually explain that regression.
and then contrast it with the idea of
and
progress.
try to problematize the issue.
Yeah.
So that was my
I was
dream.
waiting, I was waiting for that part.
But
Cause you also talked
it's too many
about-
words.
Right, you talk about also going like when you're an adult and you like lose friends,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
can't
yeah.
keep them around. I was like, oh, he's slowing down.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Yeah, and I didn't know what the friends had to do with anything.
Yeah, I
Right.
wanted to.
There was gonna be that thing of like,
Create
you
this
don't
issue.
keep going.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You actually start moving. Yeah.
But
That
that's
was- that
good.
was- So
It's a good point.
it's interesting because the words you used were all good, but actually when you wielded the
Yeah, wielded
illustration, this is at Kevin's point,
Mhm.
we wielded it led to confusion about the main point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In the relationship.
Yeah.
Or I kept wondering, like,
This
why
is
does he
leveraging,
keep talking
see.
about friends?
Yeah.
Like, you get more friends, you have less friends. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, this is the leveraging I'm talking about.
So in this case, it's not
Let me
the
get the-
illustration, and it's not the appropriateness of the illustration to the main point. It's the way that
The
you
way,
talked about it,
Yes.
of just progress.
Yeah.
Without like see some, we have a tendency to just, whoop, if you had
Yes,
just done
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh man,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna get better.
It's gonna get better.
All right. Sinen, what was one thing you were really
Pleased with about the message.
That's a hard question. I'll tell you what I'm pleased with, the text.
Nope.
Yeah, so so I actually enjoyed trying to talk to pastors.
Mm.
So it was and I could reflect on my own experience and talk directly. So that was something I actually really enjoy doing. So maybe you do a conference, Jeremy, cool.
Jeremy White.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I thought it was really, really good. I think the biggest thing that I liked was you've got a good way of turning a phrase. And so like that one, the first one you did, which was like, whoa, which I got scared about too. You're like, if you aren't shocked, then you're part of the lazy people who need to figure this out. I was like, yeah, I'm scared right now. Well, it's stuff like that, and then the backsliding and falling away kind of difference you made with that, and there were a couple other really cool phrases you had throughout. I just really liked it, but they also grabbed me, which I think is an important thing. So I was brought in to be like, what? Oh no, which I thought was good.
Yeah, I thought that you, that idea about this, the judgment thing, right, which I found like, or the justice of God, which I thought was personally encouraging. I thought also just in the overall explanation of it, you did a good job, not just to encourage somebody, to really be like, this isn't the way we usually look at it. Notice this,
Yeah, that's your-
and then here's the application of it, right? So you had all the pieces there. It wasn't just like, oh, this is good for you or whatever. Like you actually teased it out well without like belaboring it. I thought that was a really clear and concise way of talking about it. To then lead right into application that felt supernatural.
I thought you had a lot of good rhetorical moves, like when you talked about how you would be afraid and you would go home and you would pray more and read more and love your wife better, and then 5-10 minutes later you were saying if you say this to your congregation, what are they gonna do? They're gonna go home and they're gonna pray more and
Yeah,
read
yeah.
more. So that was great. There was a lot of recall back to what you had said earlier. And then another one, when we got to the verse 10, God's not unjust so as to overlook your work. Using that word overlook, and how have you been overlooked in your life, and God won't overlook you. I thought that was a really good move.
Sinen, I appreciated the tone of the passage reflecting the polarity of the passage with this warning and with the encouragement. I think you really did it quite well, as Jeremy explained a bit. Just in amplifying the warning at the beginning, the amplification of the encouragement really came through, and yet it was with a different tone. It wasn't with like as direct and kind of blunt punch sort of tone. It was a coming alongside from a pastor to other ministry leaders or pastors, and so yeah, I thought the tone worked. They worked really well off each other. The tone of the warning, the tone of the encouragement, in order to amplify the encouragement from the warning. If that makes sense. So thank you.
I thought, man, you had a lot of great applications to us, really relevant. I just thought this was a really model sermon as far as application goes, particularly in this setting we're doing right now, speaking to pastors, ministry leaders. That was well done.
I did what Bonner just said. I think he spoke really well to the context.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to add on, you're enjoyable to listen to and to watch preach, which I think is a rarity sometimes in some ways.
Sorry for you.
But no, I think you're just comfortable up there, which I think helps a lot, because I'm not nervous, it's not professional, and I'm not bored, it's just you bring yourself to the table and you're excited about what you're preaching, so it's nice to listen to.
Yeah, I thought you had a great move at the end where you were talking about just the wrong kinds of people to follow.
Yeah.
And then you were like, well, who should we follow? And you made the right move of saying, essentially, you should follow pastors who follow my main point,
Yeah.
right? So you're killing multiple birds with the same stone, right? You're encouraging them to do the right thing from the text that also just so happens to be a recall to your main point. So,
I think you did a good job arguing your main point. You didn't argue anything else. You argued your main point, and you were persuasive.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that was good. I skipped
Jeremy did
myself
fit.
the last time around. I'm gonna call attention to the haymaker you dropped. And say that was a great line, but I did only write half of it down. So continuation and maturation is due to inspiration, something like that. That was worth saying a couple of times.
Yeah. Yeah, we're too fussy.
And it also made your main point,
Yep.
as both of them are saying. So you had just a bunch of, like, it was super clear what you were trying to do, and it was also your main application too, right? So, yeah. There was a lot of clarity there for what maybe we missed in like point one or the long names of
Right.
the points. Like your main thing was still super clear, rhetorically driven and powerful in application.
I thought you did a great job just rhetorically, or just public speaking. You're very gifted, and you slow down.
Right.
I know you just brought an example about how you quickly said a line, but I really do think your cadence is extremely intriguing, and the way you slow down or speed up is really enjoyable to listen to. Did you preach off a manuscript, or was it outline based?
I tend to do manuscripts because I've
Yeah, it was,
My
you
brain
would
was
not have
surprised.
thought that was a
No way.
fully written out manuscript, so I
Really?
just thought that was,
Agreed.
yeah,
I thought it
very
was too much.
engaging.
I thought your use of the context was well done. You pointed us back to several texts. It was quick, but always helped serve your point and the point you were trying to make. So that was good.
Yeah, I felt like you constantly in the text
Mm.
during the whole time. So, and I enjoy it.
And I'll just nuance the application thing, you're commended for doing that well. Part of what made you do it well is that it was both to pastors as Christians. Is that me? Right, that question for, am I this kind of pretender person? But also to pastors as pastors, right? And then, so you dealt with the people in the room at both of those kind of critical levels, so.
Great.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you, brother and sister.